And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. This is Around Livingston. It's where I, McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, sit down with this gentleman across from me, who I'm going to let introduce himself, and we talk about what's going on in Livingston Parish. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. This is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
So let's get to it. Plenty to talk about. Probably the news of the hour. You were there last week at the courthouse. It would appear that the Dennis and Cynthia Perkins saga has come to a close.
Yes.
So tell us all about Dennis's appearance in court last week.
Yeah, well, it was about 8:50. I got a phone call and from someone telling me that I needed to be at the courthouse for a Dennis Perkins hearing. It had not been announced. We had been keeping tabs on seeing when something would be coming up because the trial was at that point 6 days away. And so it was 8:55, about a hearing going on at 10:30. So you hurry up and get ready, and you get there. You don't know what you're walking into, and then news starts kind of trickling out that he is going to do a plea agreement, and that's pretty much what happened. The trial, like we said, was supposed to start 6 days after that hearing, and it was going to last probably 2 weeks, though. Thinking about it, you don't know how something like that massive could be done in 2 weeks. But that was the time they were setting aside for it. But it ended up now just being that hearing. So he had no trial, didn't have to face a jury, but he pleaded guilty to 7 charges, down from the 78 that he was facing. Those charges were, let me get that one right, one count of second-degree rape, 2 counts of sexual battery of a child under 13, 1 count of video voyeurism, 1 count of mingling of harmful substances, and 2 counts of production of child pornography. All the other charges were dropped, but the important thing for the Attorney General's office, they said, was that the sentence. Dennis Perkins was sentenced that day. Also, there was a few victim impact statements that were read and spoken, but he was sentenced to basically 100 years in prison. So Dennis Perkins will likely spend the rest of his life in prison. That's without the benefit of parole, probation, or suspension of sentence. So yeah, that it was really it was kind of weird that this thing that started more than 3 years ago, whenever you called me saying that there was a bunch of people at the courthouse that day when Dennis Perkins was arrested. It was one of the biggest cases that we've had come through, definitely since I've been here. I mean, you've been here a lot longer than me, but your whole life basically. But yeah, I mean, it was one of the biggest, most infamous cases, I guess, there was. And then it just ended like that. It's over now. So yeah, I mean, it was good for the victims because they don't have to, some of the victims, they were saying that was really the onus behind getting that done, was to not make them have to relive that trauma. Also, the jurors, they were spared from having to, see those, some of those videos, some of those photos, hear that testimony. But like the AG's office said, Dennis Perkins still is going to be in prison for the rest of his life. And this was done also with the support of the victims. The AG's office wanted to make that clear. They said that the victims were 100% okay with this plea agreement.
So checking in with those who were affected, they are okay with it, and therefore, as you said, this I don't want to call it a saga, but this situation has come to a close, and he will go to prison for the rest of his life. So, you did a good job covering that. That has been ongoing. They've run into a lot of snags, but here we are, 3 years later.
Yeah, over 3 years,
3.5 years later.
What, it was October of 2019. So
3 1/3.
Yeah, there you go.
3 1/4, something like that.
Technically, the 4th year now, I guess, if you want to go like that. So
right,
we're a long time. Yeah, just a long time, and we already went through one trial with the Melanie Curtin one, and then Cynthia, obviously, she accepted a plea deal to testify against Dennis Perkins, but now she doesn't have to testify. But the AG's office said her deal is not affected by Dennis Perkins's.
Okay. So moving on, I think a lot of people are going to be looking to are going to be looking to move on from that. What is We got plenty of other things going on, so let's discuss those. Let's start with something small. It looks like the town of Livingston is going to be trading barbecue joints.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get out there to go to the new one that's opening today. But the Hi Ho, that's a popular burger joint on Frost Road, north of the interstate. They announced last week that they were closing their doors. I spoke with the owner. It's kind of the same story. There's been a lot of we've written stores and other restaurants, especially restaurants closing over the last year or so, and it's kind of the same story. Rising costs, uh, difficulty getting supplies, and difficulty finding employees. A lot of those things are really just since COVID that those problems really worsened. The owner told me, when things were good, they had probably a staff of about 25. Recently, they're down to 9 or 11 there, she told me. So, I mean, it just gets hard. And, sometimes if one person calls in, then you can't run the restaurant. You might have to close abruptly. So yeah, it just made it difficult for the owners. They this year they were trying to get to their, I think June, she said, would have been their 12-year anniversary there. But yeah, I mean, just another story of business having to close because of those reasons. But like you said, there's another one that's opening soon. The barbecue station, I believe it's called. They're opening today, actually. So yeah, there will be another place, and then Taco Bell is being built down there. So I mean, there's some places coming in.
Sure, sure. So tell us a little bit about what else you got going on.
Well, the other big news is probably Air Products. We talked about it earlier last year. Air Products is a company that's looking to build a clean energy complex in Livingston Parish and then store the CO2 emissions underneath portions of the area, most notably for Livingston Parish, underneath Lake Maurepas. Livingston Parish Council issued a moratorium blocking testing wells, and those aren't the ones that actually put the CO2 in the ground, but those are ones they inject non-hazardous uh, inject fluids or injections into the ground. Uh, but the Livingston Parish Council blocked that. But that's also, I guess, I should say, Air Products need to do that because that's how they get their permits to be able to store the CO2. They have to test the area, and so the council in October passed an ordinance that didn't allow those in parish waterways. And the thing about Lake Maurepas is it's technically owned by the state. So the state is the one that gave the authority to Air Products to do this. And Air Products is fully permitted to do the testing and seismic activity. So, long story short, Air Products sued the parish council for imposing the moratorium, and the judge just before the new year ruled in favor of Air Products, saying that they did have the authority to do that, and the parish council could no longer enforce that ordinance. So Air Products is in the midst of its testing right now, and that's supposed to go on until sometime in the spring. But yeah, so that's the latest on the Air Product saga. A lot of sagas.
the gift that keeps on giving. What else do you have for us?
And some other big news, I guess John Kennedy, U.S. Senator John Kennedy announced he told supporters in an email that he was not going to run for governor. He was one of the big names, really the big name being floated out there. Attorney General Jeff Landry has already made his announcement, and he's also obviously a big name for that position. But John Kennedy was the one that a lot of people thought was going to throw his hat in there and probably, looked like the likely winner. I mean, being a U.S. senator, you're well known. And he's made a lot of Louisiana people happy over his first term in the Senate. Being that kind of Southern pundit that goes up on Fox News a lot talking, but so a lot of people were looking for him to run, but he announced that he was not going to. He said he felt that he could do more for the state and the nation from the Senate. So as of right now, Jeff Landry is still the only big candidate to announce his bid for the governor's seat. That election is this year. So we'll wait to see if other ones are going to announce. Billy Nungesser, Lieutenant Governor, is I believe he said that he was going to announce sometime this week possibly, but he was waiting. You know, a lot of candidates were waiting to see what John Kennedy was going to do because that was, that a lot didn't want to run against him. So that's kind of the big news from the state political front right now.
So, lots of drama. We can expect. Louisiana can expect over the next year.
Yes.
Depending on how many, if any, large candidates or potential high-level candidates announce in the coming days. So keep an eye out on that. We've got some local races heating up already. Statewide races. It's going to be an interesting year, and then we're going to get into a shoot starting in August.
Yes.
After qualifying, it's going to be there's a lot. Just in case you're curious, parish council and parish president are next year, along with the other parish-wide offices.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have 2 representative seats and a Senate seat up. And then we also have at the state level all the statewide offices, including governor. So it's going to be a packed ballot. Lots going on.
Oh, so much fun.
Yeah, tons of fun. So, well, thank you, sir, for taking the time this morning. If you'll introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, this is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there for joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. This is Around Livingston, where David and I talk about what's going on around Livingston. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.